Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the Earth not as it is now, but as it was billions of years ago. No trees, no animals, no voices. Only the endless sound of waves crashing against bare rock, steam rising from volcanic vents, and a sky painted with unfamiliar colors. In that quiet world, something extraordinary was about to begin, not with a bang or a roar, but with a whisper so faint most would miss it, the first spark of life. Evolution is not a story of sudden miracles. It is a tale of patience, of tiny steps taken over unimaginable time, a slow dance between matter and chance, between survival and change. Each breath you take carries within it the memory of this journey. The atoms in your body once drifted through oceans, once belonged to stars, once were part of creatures long forgotten. Tonight, as you let your body rest, we will walk through this story together. Not rushed, not forced, but as a gentle river of time flowing from the first spark of life to the living world you know today. So settle in and let us drift back to the beginning, the quiet mystery of life's first spark. Life did not arrive with trumpets or fanfare. It began in silence, in the hidden corners of Earth's ancient oceans. Scientists still debate how it happened. Was it lightning striking a warm pond, or minerals deep in the ocean floor that coaxed chemicals into motion? No one knows for certain, but what is clear is that somewhere in that stillness, simple molecules began to play together in ways they never had before. There is something humbling in that thought. Every living thing you see today, every bird, every fish, every person, traces back to that delicate balance of chance and chemistry. Imagine a barren world, the oceans endless and dark, and inside them, invisible reactions quietly weaving possibilities, no eyes to witness it, no mind to wonder at it. And yet the stage was being set for everything that would one day breathe and think. What makes it more mysterious is how fragile it must have been. A tiny spark of organization in a vast chaos. Any small disturbance and it could have vanished forever. And yet it didn't. Somehow, against the odds, it survived, multiplied, and began its quiet march forward. It's strange to think that the origin of life is not locked in some mythic past. The same processes of chemistry and chance still hum inside you right now. Your cells carry the whisper of that first spark, repeating the same codes and patterns that began long before Earth had forests or clouds. You are not apart from this mystery. You are its living continuation. The first spark of life was not grand, not majestic. It was patient, persistent, and unnoticed. And maybe that is the greatest lesson it carries, that small beginnings, no matter how quiet, can reshape the destiny of entire worlds. How tiny molecules began to copy themselves. Once the first spark flickered, the story deepened. Certain molecules discovered a peculiar trick. They could make copies of themselves. This was no accident, but a quiet dance of chemistry, where patterns folded and refolded, like ripples on water that keep spreading outward. Replication is at the heart of all life. Without it, nothing endures. The earliest molecules were not perfect. Their copies often came with mistakes, tiny errors that twisted the pattern in new directions. Most of these errors faded into nothing, but some gave the molecules an advantage. They survived longer, or worked faster, or held together more tightly. Think of it. Imperfection became the fuel of progress. Life grew not because everything was flawless, but because errors allowed change, and change meant possibility. Even now, every breath you take, every cell in your body repeats this ancient rhythm. Copy, error, adapt. You are a walking archive of billions of such experiments. At the time, there were no eyes to see, no minds to understand. and yet the rules of life had been written. Molecules that could replicate would outlast those that could not. From that simple truth, the endless diversity of life began its journey. When you look in the mirror, remember, the very fact you exist is because, long ago, molecules learned how to copy themselves. That quiet invention still beats at the center of your being, the gentle rhythm of oceans shaping early chemistry. The oceans were not just a backdrop to life's beginning, they were the cradle itself. Their tides, their minerals, their gentle stirring created the perfect conditions for molecules to meet and mingle. Without the oceans, the first sparks of life might have never lasted. Picture the early seas, thick with strange colors, filled with dissolved gases, warmed by heat from the Earth's crust. In those waters, molecules floated freely, bumping into each other, sometimes joining, sometimes breaking apart. Each wave was like a hand stirring an unseen recipe, and little by little, the ingredients of life blended together. The rhythm of the tides acted like a heartbeat, pushing molecules toward one another, pulling them apart, and giving them endless chances to connect in new ways. Over countless cycles, those random meetings became less random, and patterns began to emerge. Even today, the oceans hold echoes of that ancient story. Salt water runs in your veins, carrying the same minerals that once bathed the first forms of life. Every drop of blood is a quiet reminder that your body is tied to the sea, no matter how far you walk from its shores. Life owes itself to the patience of the oceans, not a single event, but a slow, ceaseless rhythm that gave molecules the time they needed to become more than mere chemistry. It was the sea's gentle cradle that nurtured life into being. Why simple bubbles may have been nature's first cells. Imagine tiny bubbles rising in a warm pool, fragile and fleeting. Most pop and vanish, but a few linger just a little longer, holding the chaos of molecules inside. These simple bubbles may have been the first homes of life. A bubble, after all, is a container. It separates inside from outside, creating a safe space where reactions can build without interruption. Within these fragile walls, molecules could replicate, interact, and slowly become more complex. Without protection, life might never have survived the turbulence of the early Earth. What makes this idea so fascinating is how ordinary it seems. Soap bubbles on a child's breath, foam in ocean waves, all are reminders of this ancient trick of nature. Something so delicate, so temporary, may have laid the foundation for everything alive today. And yet, bubbles are more than symbols. In your body right now, trillions of cells are living bubbles, each carrying the memory of that first fragile container. The skin of your cells, thin and flexible, still echoes the design that may have once floated in a warm pond billions of years ago. The first cells were not engineered. They were accidents of nature, shaped by chance and sustained by persistence. But those accidents became the ancestors of every tree, every bird, and every person listening tonight. The silent patience of DNA forming its code. Within those bubbles, something remarkable emerged. A language. Molecules learned to store instructions, not just exist. This language was DNA. DNA is often spoken of with awe, but its beginning was likely quiet, almost humble. Strands of nucleotides twisting and coiling, carrying the ability to remember and to pass that memory forward. Unlike the fragile bubbles, DNA could last, and in lasting, it allowed life to build on what came before. Without DNA, every generation would start from nothing. Think of DNA as a book written in 4 letters. Those letters spell out not just how to build a body, but how to change, how to adapt, how to dream beyond the present. Every creature, from the smallest bacterium to the tallest tree, reads from the same alphabet. And here's a thought that always feels quietly astonishing. The DNA inside your cells is not new. It is ancient. It carries the scars and stories of every ancestor you have ever had, stretching back to that first spark in the ocean. You are living history, written in code, carried forward through time. DNA did not arrive in a single moment of brilliance. It took patience, molecules slowly refining themselves, finding stability, and learning to remember. And from that memory, the entire story of life unfolded. How light from the sun pushed life to grow. The sun was always there, burning quietly in the sky, but for a long time, life did not yet know how to use it. Then, slowly, certain molecules discovered a gift. They could capture sunlight and turn it into energy. This was the birth of photosynthesis. Imagine the quiet oceans, and within them, tiny beings drinking light, using it to grow, to endure, to thrive. It was a turning point unlike any other. For the first time, life was no longer dependent only on the scraps of chemistry in the sea. It had tapped into the most abundant source of power the earth could offer, the sun. And with that, growth became limitless, spilling out in every direction. Photosynthesis was not just about survival, it was about transformation. These tiny organisms released oxygen as a byproduct, and oxygen, though invisible, reshaped the planet forever. It filled the air, it poisoned some early life, and yet it became the foundation for everything that breathes today. Think of a forest swaying in sunlight, or a field of grass under a blue sky. That story began here, with molecules learning to catch photons like raindrops. It's not just plants that owe their existence to this. So do you. The sun, patient and steady, had always been shining. Life simply had to learn how to listen. Once it did, the world would never be the same again. The calm rise of single-celled organisms. With energy from the sun, life began to settle into new forms. The oceans filled with single-celled organisms, small, silent, almost invisible, yet powerful beyond measure. They drifted, multiplied, and spread everywhere, covering Earth in a film of microscopic life. To the naked eye, the world looked unchanged, but beneath the surface, it had transformed completely. Single-celled organisms are the true rulers of Earth. They were the first to adapt, the first to find ways to endure heat, cold, salt, and darkness. Even today, they outnumber every other form of life combined. Each one, though tiny, carried the full machinery of survival within its fragile body. It's fascinating how simplicity can be stronger than complexity. A human body needs trillions of cells working together, but a single bacterium by itself is already a complete living being. It eats, it reproduces, it adapts. Nothing more is required. And here's the quiet miracle. These organisms invented nearly every trick that later life would use. Digestion, movement, defense, communication, all were rehearsed in their world long before animals appeared. They were the first architects of survival. When you drink water, when you touch the soil, you meet them still. They are our ancestors, but also our companions, shaping the earth in ways we rarely notice. The strange beauty of bacteria sharing their secrets. Among those early organisms, bacteria played a special role. They were small, yes, but endlessly inventive. What made them unique was their willingness to share. Unlike larger creatures, bacteria could exchange pieces of their genetic code with each other, passing survival tricks like gifts. This meant that a discovery in one bacterium, you can say the ability to resist heat or to digest a new food, could quickly spread across entire populations. It was evolution accelerated, a network of life whispering its secrets back and forth in silence. Today this may sound like a tiny detail, but it shaped the path of everything to come. Without bacteria sharing their knowledge, many later forms of life might never have survived the early Earth. Cooperation was as powerful as competition, and in that balance, progress unfolded. It is humbling to realize that every cell in your body still carries echoes of this bacterial wisdom. The mitochondria that power your muscles. Once free-living bacteria, the gut microbes that help you digest food, modern heirs of those ancient sharers. Bacteria remind us of something profound. Survival is not always about standing alone. Sometimes it is about passing knowledge, ensuring that what one learns all may benefit from. When oxygen quietly transformed the entire planet, as bacteria and other organisms thrived on sunlight, they released oxygen into the atmosphere. At first, it was just a trace, unnoticed, almost irrelevant. But over millions of years, oxygen built up like a quiet tide until the very air was changed forever. This moment is called the Great Oxidation Event, and it was both a blessing and a catastrophe. For many early forms of life, oxygen was poison. They could not survive in its presence, and so entire worlds of creatures perished. But for others, oxygen was a gift, a fuel that made new kinds of energy possible. It allowed cells to burn food more efficiently, to grow larger, to move faster. This quiet shift turned the Earth from a place of simple microbes into a stage ready for complexity. Oxygen carved the path for multicellular life, for plants, for animals, for humans. The very breath you take now is part of that ancient inheritance. Sometimes change comes not as a sudden storm, but as an invisible current. Oxygen was that current. It drifted into the skies, filled the oceans, and rewrote the rules of life without a single sound. Every inhale you draw carries within it the memory of that transformation. The air itself is a monument to evolution's patience, the hidden teamwork inside every cell. Inside those early organisms, something even more astonishing was happening. Cells began to host tiny partners. Smaller life forms that moved in, stayed, and offered their help. Instead of enemies, they became allies. This was the birth of endosymbiosis, the teamwork that gave rise to the complexity of life. Mitochondria, the engines inside your cells, were once free-living bacteria. They entered a larger cell and struck a bargain. We will provide energy if you give us shelter. That quiet agreement still powers your heartbeat, your breath, your thoughts. You are alive because of an ancient handshake between two microbes. This partnership shows that evolution is not only about competition. Sometimes survival means joining forces, combining strengths, and trusting the stranger who knocks at the door. In those hidden moments of alliance, new possibilities were born. The cell became a miniature world, a bustling city of parts working together, each organelle with its role, each contributing to the survival of the whole. Life was no longer a single voice. It was a choir, harmonizing within one fragile bubble. As you sit here, billions of years later, every cell in your body hums with that teamwork. Inside you, the legacy of ancient partnerships continues, quiet but unstoppable. How tiny partnerships created mitochondria. Long ago, a small wandering bacterium entered a larger cell. Instead of being destroyed, it stayed, and the two began to live together. That small decision, or perhaps accident, gave rise to mitochondria, the power plants inside your cells today. They take in nutrients, release energy, and keep you alive with every single heartbeat. This partnership was more than survival, it was trust. One offered energy, the other offered shelter. Over time, they became inseparable. The bacterium lost its freedom, but gained a forever home. The larger cell lost control, but gained limitless power. Life had discovered the secret of synergy. When you walk, laugh or dream, it is mitochondria fueling you. Each spark of energy in your muscles and brain traces back to that ancient alliance. What's astonishing is that these tiny engines still carry traces of their independent past, with their own DNA, their own rhythm, inside every cell of your body. It makes you wonder, how often in life does survival depend not on fighting, but on embracing the outsider? The origin of mitochondria whispers that collaboration, even with a stranger, can lead to unimagined strength. Without this ancient partnership, complex life might never have unfolded. Every step you take is powered by that choice made billions of years ago, the long stillness before complexity arrived. After mitochondria joined the story, the world entered a period of calm. Life remained simple for an astonishingly long time. For nearly 2 billion years, Earth was ruled by microscopic creatures. No forests, no animals, no sound but the wind and waves. It was as though evolution paused, gathering strength for what was to come. This long stillness is easy to overlook, but it was essential. During those quiet ages, life was perfecting its tools, refining its chemistry, preparing for greater leaps. Just because nothing visible changed does not mean nothing happened. Sometimes the most powerful progress happens in silence. Imagine the oceans then filled with unseen activity. Molecules perfected the dance of copying DNA, cells learned better ways to protect themselves, and hidden inside, mitochondria practiced turning food into energy with greater precision. Nature was rehearsing in secret before stepping onto the grand stage. It's a reminder for us, too, patience is not wasted time. Just as life waited in stillness, we often underestimate what quiet seasons are shaping within us. The invisible groundwork may be the most important work of all. Out of that vast silence, something extraordinary was about to rise: complexity, cooperation, and bodies made of many cells working together. The birth of multicellular harmony. At some point, single cells began to join hands, forming communities. Instead of living alone, they decided to live together. This was the birth of multicellular life, a leap from solitude into harmony. The difference was immense. A single cell could only do so much, but together cells could share tasks, specialize, and build something greater than themselves. Picture it, groups of cells clustering, some taking on the role of feeding, others of protection, others of reproduction. The result was a simple body, crude by our standards, but revolutionary in its time. From this harmony came sponges, corals, and countless other creatures. It wasn't just about survival. Multicellularity allowed size, structure, and entirely new possibilities. A lone cell could be swept away by a current, but a colony of cells could anchor itself, endure waves, and interact with the world in richer ways. Suddenly, evolution had a new canvas to paint on. What's remarkable is that even today, your own body is a symphony of this principle. Trillions of cells live inside you, each with its role, none fully aware of the whole. You are living proof of cooperation's power. Multicellularity was not inevitable. It was a bold experiment of life, and it changed the direction of Earth's history forever. Why sponges are living fossils of simplicity. Among the first multicellular beings were sponges. They may seem unremarkable, fixed to rocks, filtering water, lacking nerves or muscles. Yet they are living fossils, echoes of life's earliest attempt at complexity. In their simple bodies, we glimpse the first draft of multicellular design. Sponges show us that complexity begins humbly. They do not move, yet they survive by pulling in water, capturing tiny nutrients, and sharing them through their community of cells. Each part plays its role, without a brain, without a leader. Harmony is built into their design. What's fascinating is that though sponges look primitive, their DNA contains many of the same building blocks that would later give rise to animals with eyes, muscles, and nervous systems. Hidden inside them are the seeds of every creature that would follow. When you see a sponge on the ocean floor, you're not just looking at an odd sea creature. You are looking at your ancestor, a being that helped invent the blueprint of multicellular life. Their survival across 500 million years is proof of their quiet success. Sponges whisper, a truth evolution teaches again and again. Survival does not always require speed, strength, or intelligence. Sometimes simplicity endures longer than brilliance, the quiet leap toward organized bodies. After sponges came more refined bodies with shapes, layers, and coordinated movement. Cells no longer just lived side by side. They began to form tissues, organs, and systems. It was the quiet leap from mere clusters to organized bodies where every part had a purpose and worked in harmony. Think of it as nature's architecture. Some cells became skin shielding the outside. Others became muscle pulling and pushing. Others specialized in sensing the world or in digesting food. Slowly, the idea of a body was born, not just a group of cells, but a living machine of cooperation. This leap opened doors to endless possibilities. Animals could now swim faster, burrow deeper, and sense the world in richer ways. The blueprint of tissues and organs became the foundation for the diversity we see in oceans, forests, and skies today. And here's the breathtaking part. Your own body is the direct descendant of this innovation. Every organ you rely on, or your beating heart, your watchful eyes, your breathing lungs, can trace their origins back to this quiet leap when cells first began to specialize. It reminds us that great transformations rarely happen in one instant. They emerge from small refinements, tiny adjustments, until suddenly a new world is possible, the first whispers of nervous systems. As bodies grew more complex, a new challenge appeared. How could cells coordinate? How could one part of the body speak to another? Out of this question came the first whispers of nervous systems. At first, it was just simple signals, tiny sparks passing between cells, telling them when to contract, when to relax, when to sense light or pressure. Imagine a jelly-like creature drifting in the sea, its body made of layers of cells. When touched, it ripples with a faint response. That ripple is communication, the earliest nervous system learning to guide behavior. It was not thought, not yet, but it was awareness in its simplest form. The arrival of nerves was like adding wires to a machine. Suddenly, different parts of the body could coordinate together. A touch in one place could trigger a movement in another. This meant greater survival, greater adaptation, and greater control over the environment. Even now, your nervous system is a grand descendant of that first whisper. Billions of neurons fire quietly, passing signals faster than lightning, orchestrating your every step, thought, and memory. And yet, at its heart, it is still that ancient spark refined over time. The nervous system was the beginning of something new. Not just survival, but response, interaction, and eventually consciousness itself. How sight slowly began in darkness. Long before eyes as we know them, there were only patches of cells sensitive to light. Imagine a creature that cannot see shapes or colors but can sense when darkness turns to light, when shadow falls across its body. That simple awareness was the first seed of sight. Over time, those patches became more refined. They could sense direction, telling a creature where the light was strongest. This small advantage meant survival, to move toward warmth or away from danger lurking in the shadows. Each improvement brought life closer to vision as we know it today. The true eye was not designed overnight. It was built piece by piece, a curve here, a lens there, a nerve to carry the image inward. What began as a blur of brightness became outlines and eventually the intricate detail of form and movement. Nature shaped vision not through sudden leaps but through countless small refinements. Think of the wonder in that moment. For the first time, life could truly look out at the world. The ocean, the sky, the shimmer of another creature all became visible. The world was no longer only felt, it could be seen. Every glance you take today carries that long inheritance. Behind your eyes lies a history that began in shadows and ended in sight. The graceful invention of movement. Life at first was anchored, fixed to rocks, drifting with tides, dependent on chance. But in time, some creatures began to move. At first it was only tiny cilia, little hairs that pushed them along, or flagella, whip-like tails that helped them swim. Small, yes, but revolutionary. Movement changed everything. A drifting creature could now chase food instead of waiting. It could flee predators, explore new waters, seek better places to live. It gave life freedom from the currents, freedom to choose direction. That choice made survival a new kind of game. Over millions of years, movement grew more graceful. Muscles formed, skeletons emerged, and bodies began to twist, crawl, and eventually walk. What began as a flick of a tail became the leap of a fish, the scuttle of a crab, the flight of a bird. There's something poetic about it, the first trembling stroke of movement leading eventually to dancers, runners, and explorers crossing entire worlds. The story of movement is the story of freedom. To roam, to adapt, to shape destiny instead of waiting for fate. The next time you take a step, remember, it is not just your own action. It is the echo of life's first experiments with motion, still unfolding in your body, the ancient elegance of jellyfish drifting. Among the first creatures to master movement were jellyfish, and even today they remain timeless symbols of ancient seas. With no brain, no bones, no heart, they drift and pulse gracefully, carried by currents yet alive with their own rhythm. Their design is so simple, yet so perfect. It has lasted for over 500 million years. Jellyfish are living reminders that complexity is not always necessary. Their nervous system is a net, not a brain, spreading signals through the body like whispers on water. With this they move, glow, and even hunt, all without central control. It is life reduced to elegance. Their translucent bodies remind us of the fragility of early life. Soft, almost invisible, and yet capable of surviving longer than dinosaurs, longer than forests, longer than mountains. In their stillness, they carry the resilience of time itself. When you watch a jellyfish drifting, it feels like watching the memory of evolution. A creature from the dawn of animals, unchanged because it never needed to change. The oceans carry them as though carrying the pages of life's earliest story. And so in their quiet beauty, jellyfish teach us this. Sometimes endurance lies not in conquering, but in flowing with the currents of the world. The slow march of creatures onto land. For millions of years, life belonged to the sea. But slowly, some creatures began to test the edge of water and land. First came plants and fungi, greening the shores, creating food and shelter. Then brave, fish-like animals crawled onto muddy banks, their fins beginning to serve as legs. Each step was clumsy, but history was changing. The march onto land was not sudden. Generations of creatures moved between water and shore, learning to breathe air, to carry their weight without the sea, to endure the sun. Every small adaptation opened the way for the next. It must have been both terrifying and full of promise. To leave the safety of water meant danger, but it also meant opportunity. Untapped food, empty space, and a new world to explore. Slowly, the land filled with plants, insects, amphibians, and the earliest reptiles. Every forest, every meadow you see today is the child of that march. The courage of creatures long gone made possible the landscapes you walk through now. Without those first crawlers, Earth would never have known birdsong, mammals, or even us. The footprints of those pioneers may be gone, but their legacy surrounds you with every tree and every blade of grass. How fins began dreaming of legs. In shallow waters, some fish found themselves trapped in drying pools. To survive, they needed more than fins. Slowly, their fins began to strengthen, bones forming that could push against the mud. These were not yet legs, but they were the first dream of walking. Evolution was sketching new blueprints, experimenting with forms that could bear weight outside the sea. Imagine the courage of those creatures dragging themselves across wet banks, gasping for air. Each stumble was survival, each struggle a step into the unknown. Though clumsy, their effort opened the possibility of movement on land, a stage untouched and waiting. Over time, these proto-legs grew stronger, more reliable. Joints formed, muscles adapted, and the first true steps were taken. These creatures were no longer prisoners of water. They had one fin in the sea and one in the world of land. It was a threshold moment where life tested its boundaries and succeeded. What's profound is that every leg today, whether of a cat, a bird, or a human, carries the memory of that dream. The structure of bones in your own legs echoes the fins of ancient fish. You walk with history beneath your skin. The journey from fin to leg was not quick, but it was bold, and boldness, in time, reshaped the very face of the planet, the fragile footprints of early amphibians. With legs came the first amphibians, creatures that split their lives between water and land. They laid eggs in ponds but hunted insects on shore. Their bodies told a story of transition. Gills fading, lungs forming, limbs strong enough to push through reeds and mud. Each amphibian was a living compromise between two worlds. The earliest footprints of these pioneers still survive, pressed into ancient rock. Small impressions, fragile, yet carrying the weight of history. They remind us that the first steps of land animals were not perfect strides, but tentative touches, cautious but determined. Amphibians thrived in swamps and wetlands, ruling a lush world that was warm and damp. Frogs and salamanders of today still carry their legacy. They are living witnesses of the first true walkers, descendants of those who dared to leave the sea behind. But their fragility showed too. Amphibians needed water to reproduce, and so they could never stray too far. They were bound to moist places, tied to the world they came from, even as they explored the new one. Even so, they proved something important, that land could be home. Their footprints led the way for others to follow. Creatures that would break the last ties to water and conquer the dry earth. The resilience of plants greening the earth. Before animals could thrive on land, plants had to prepare the stage. Long before forests rose, tiny mosses and ferns crept across the soil. They anchored themselves with roots, spreading greenery over bare rock, softening the land for future life. The world, once grey and barren, began to turn green. Plants brought more than beauty. They shaped the air, releasing oxygen and cooling the climate. Their roots broke stone into soil, their leaves fed insects, and their shade created shelter. Slowly they built ecosystems from nothing, turning lifeless ground into living habitat. The resilience of plants is humbling. They cannot run, cannot flee, yet they endure by growing, adapting, and spreading silently. Even today, the grass beneath your feet and the trees above you continue this work of transforming Earth, one season at a time. The greening of the planet was a quiet revolution. It did not roar, it did not thunder. It crept leaf by leaf, root by root, until the land became a living carpet. Without it, no animal could have survived beyond the water's edge. Plants remind us that progress often arrives in stillness. By simply growing, they reshaped the planet, preparing the world for the age of land animals. How insects painted the skies with wings. As plants spread, insects followed. Small, fragile, yet endlessly inventive, they were among the first to take to the skies. Wings gave them freedom no creature had known before, to hover above forests, to escape predators, to spread far and wide. The air itself became their new domain. Dragonflies, with wingspans larger than a human hand, ruled the primeval skies. Their buzzing flight carried them through vast swamps, making them the earliest masters of air. It is hard to imagine now, but long before birds or bats, insects had already claimed the heavens. Insects also became vital partners for plants. Some carried pollen, others spread seeds, building invisible alliances that shaped ecosystems forever. The dance between flower and insect was one of the most important relationships in history, one that still continues each spring. Their adaptability was astonishing. With hard shells, diverse diets, and endless forms, insects spread into nearly every corner of Earth. Their wings carried them across deserts, mountains, and forests, filling the air with movement and sound. Even today, insects remain the silent majority, their numbers beyond comprehension. They remind us that sometimes the smallest creatures leave the largest mark. The age when reptiles ruled in silence. From amphibians came reptiles, and with them a new power, the ability to live fully on land. Their eggs, protected by shells, no longer needed water. They carried their world with them, ready to hatch in dry soil. This simple change freed them, allowing reptiles to spread into deserts, forests, and plains. Reptiles were survivors designed for resilience. Scales protected them from drying out, strong limbs carried them far, and sharp senses helped them hunt. They ruled the earth not with noise but with quiet persistence, filling every niche of the land. In time, reptiles grew into giants, crocodiles that stalked rivers, lizards that thrived in forests, and eventually dinosaurs that shook the ground with their steps. But even in their smallest forms, reptiles proved their strength through endurance. What makes reptiles fascinating is their patience. Unlike mammals, they did not need constant food or warmth. They could wait, conserving energy, surviving where others would perish. Their silence was their strategy, their calm their weapon. Every snake that slithers, every turtle that crawls, every lizard basking in the sun is a reminder of this ancient reign. A reign built not on speed or fury, but on quiet mastery of the land. The gentle secret of warm blood emerging. Not all creatures were content to rely on the sun for warmth. Some began to generate heat inside their bodies. This was the birth of warm blood, a quiet but powerful invention. It meant freedom, to move in cold nights, to hunt in winter, to live where others could not survive. Warm blood was energy, but it was also independence. It came at a cost. Warm-blooded animals needed more food, more constant fuel. Their bodies burned faster, demanding a steady supply. Yet the reward was immense. Activity at any hour, in any climate. Life was no longer chained to warmth from the sky. Birds and mammals inherited this gift, and with it they spread into every corner of Earth. From frozen tundra to desert heat, warm blood allowed them to endure, adapt, and thrive. It was not the largest creatures that won, but those who carried a fire within. This fire is still in you. Your steady body temperature, the warmth of your skin, the heat you carry even in winter nights, all are echoes of that ancient secret. Warm blood became a symbol of resilience, a flame passed down through generations. It was evolution's way of saying, survival belongs to those who carry the spark within, even when the world grows cold. The astonishing rise of feathers. Long before feathers graced the wings of birds, they appeared for other reasons: warmth, display, even camouflage. At first, they were simple filaments, like soft hair, helping creatures keep heat close. Later, they grew into plumes, colourful and striking, tools for attracting mates and warning rivals. Feathers were beauty before they were flight. Then came the Great Leap. Feathers, once used for warmth and display, began to shape the air. They caught the wind, lifted bodies upward, and gave birth to a new freedom: flight. It was one of evolution's most breathtaking transformations, a repurposing of something ordinary into something extraordinary. Imagine a dinosaur covered not in scales alone, but in soft, downy feathers. Slowly, those feathers lengthened, stiffened, and became wings. What was once a ground runner became a sky dancer. The earth gained not just new creatures, but new dimensions of life. The open skies themselves. Even today, feathers remain among the most versatile inventions of evolution. They insulate, they lift, they dazzle with color, they write patterns across the wings of birds. A single feather carries within it both practicality and poetry. The rise of feathers shows us this truth. Sometimes the greatest transformations come not from inventing something new, but from giving old things new purpose. The survival art of dinosaurs in shifting worlds. Dinosaurs rose from reptiles and grew into masters of Earth. For millions of years they ruled forests, plains, and skies. Some thundered across the land in herds, others stalked alone with sharp teeth and keen senses. They were not monsters, they were survivors. Each adapted to a world that kept changing beneath their feet. Their strength lay not only in size, but in variety. From towering giants like Brachiosaurus to swift hunters like Velociraptor, dinosaurs filled every niche, proving the endless creativity of evolution. Each body told a story of survival, of adaptation written in bone and scale. What's striking is how long they lasted, not for centuries or millennia, but for over 160 million years. In that time, continents shifted, climates rose and fell, yet dinosaurs endured. They were not temporary rulers, they were patience made flesh. And though we think of them as gone, their lineage lives on. Birds are their direct descendants, carrying the legacy of dinosaurs in every wing beat. The song of a sparrow today is the echo of a creature that once walked among giants. The age of dinosaurs teaches us that survival is not about one form, but about the ability to change with the world. They were artists of adaptation, each species painting its own survival across time. The quiet persistence of mammals in shadows. While dinosaurs dominated, mammals lived quietly in the background. They were small, often no bigger than mice, hiding in burrows, feeding at night, avoiding the heavy steps of giants above. Their survival strategy was simple: stay unnoticed, stay adaptable, stay alive. Mammals carried advantages others overlooked. Warm blood gave them freedom, fur gave them insulation, and sharp senses let them thrive in the dark. They nursed their young with milk, offering protection and nourishment, ensuring survival even when the world outside was hostile. For millions of years they waited in the shadows, not in weakness, but in patience. While dinosaurs filled the skies and plains, mammals honed their skills in secret. Better brains, better endurance, better care for their young. Every small adaptation was preparing them for the day their chance would come. And when that day arrived, mammals were ready. Their quiet persistence became their strength, allowing them to rise when the giants fell. It was a reminder that power is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it whispers, surviving in silence until the world changes. Even today, every mammal, from the smallest mouse to the largest whale, carries that spirit of quiet persistence. It is the legacy of those who endured in shadows until their time arrived. How the great extinction opened new doors. Then came the great turning point, an extinction that reshaped life forever. Whether by asteroid, volcanic fire, or shifting climate, the age of dinosaurs ended. Giants fell, ecosystems collapsed, and the earth grew quiet again. But in that silence, new doors opened. Extinction was tragedy, yet it was also opportunity. With the rulers gone, space was made for others to rise. Mammals, once small and hidden, now had room to grow. They spread into forests, grasslands, and mountains, filling the empty niches left behind. From that expansion came primates, whales, cats, and eventually humans. It is hard to grasp. Without the extinction of dinosaurs, we would not be here. Life's story is written not only in survival, but also in endings that clear the stage for new beginnings. The fall of one world gives birth to another. Extinctions remind us of life's fragility, but also its resilience. Though countless species vanish, evolution finds new ways, new forms, new songs. The rhythm of creation continues, never stopping, always adapting. The Great Extinction was not just an end, it was a doorway. And through that doorway, the next chapters of life began to unfold, the flowering explosion that fed new creatures. Long after the fall of dinosaurs, plants discovered a new trick. They began to bloom. Flowers, with their colors, scents, and sweet nectar, transformed the earth into a feast for insects, birds, and mammals. This was not just beauty for beauty's sake. It was strategy, a way to lure partners for pollination, ensuring survival and spread. The flowering explosion reshaped ecosystems. Meadows blossomed, forests filled with blossoms, and fruits ripened to carry seeds farther than ever before. For animals, it was abundance. Food that was richer, more varied, more plentiful. For plants, it was partnership, life carried forward through attraction. Imagine the quiet revolution. A plain green earth suddenly painted with reds, yellows, purples, bees buzzing, birds drawn by sweetness, mammals feeding on fruits. Each petal was not just decoration, but survival encoded in color and fragrance. It was evolution, playing artist, painting landscapes with living light. Flowers also altered time itself. They bloomed in seasons, creating rhythms of abundance and rest. These rhythms guided migration, reproduction, and the cycles of life we still follow today. The pulse of spring is not just climate. It is the heartbeat of flowering plants. The beauty you see in every garden, every field, is the outcome of this ancient explosion. Flowers are more than decoration. They are the proof that survival can also be beautiful. The graceful evolution of whales returning to sea. In a twist almost poetic, some mammals that once crawled onto land chose to return to the sea. Over generations, their legs became flippers, their noses shifted to blowholes, and their bodies stretched into sleek shapes. These were whales, giants reborn from landwalkers, carrying air-filled lungs into the depths of oceans. The journey back was slow. Early ancestors of whales walked on shorelines, hunting in shallow waters. Each generation leaned more toward the sea, until land was no longer home. It is strange, but also fitting. Life began in water, and in whales it returned. Whales are among the most elegant reminders of evolution's creativity. massive yet graceful, bound to breathe air yet thriving in oceans. Their songs echo across thousands of miles as though the sea itself remembers their story. They are not just animals, they are living bridges between land and water. What makes them astonishing is their survival strategy. Instead of conquering land, they embraced the sea anew, growing larger, stronger, and more majestic than most land creatures could ever be. Their return shows that evolution is not a straight line, but a spiral, circling back to old places with new forms. Every whale breaching today carries the memory of this transformation. They remind us that returning to origins can sometimes be the boldest step forward. The patient shaping of elephants on land. On land, another lineage of mammals was slowly shaping giants, the ancestors of elephants. From small pig-like creatures, they grew larger, stronger, and wiser. Over millions of years, their noses stretched into trunks, tools of remarkable precision. Their bodies swelled into massive frames, yet their movements remained calm, deliberate, almost gentle. Elephants embody patience. They walk, slowly live long, and remember across generations. Their size protects them, but it is their memory and cooperation that make them powerful. In family herds, guided by matriarchs, they carry knowledge of waterholes, seasons, and dangers, passing wisdom across time. Their tusks, carved from teeth, became symbols of strength, tools for digging and defense. Yet beyond the physical, elephants evolved emotional depth. They mourn their dead, celebrate new life, and show bonds that stretch beyond survival. They are proof that evolution shaped not only bodies but hearts. What's striking is how they embody balance, immense in power, yet deeply social and nurturing. Their presence in savannas and forests shapes entire ecosystems, creating paths, spreading seeds, and altering landscapes simply by living. In every elephant we see the story of life, choosing not just strength, but intelligence, memory, and connection. They are monuments of evolution's patience on land. The delicate strategy of bats taking to the night. While whales claimed the oceans and elephants the plains, bats mastered the night sky. They were the only mammals to truly fly, their arms stretched into wings of skin and bone. In darkness, they found freedom, avoiding predators and hunting with precision. But their secret weapon was not just flight. It was echolocation and the ability to see with sound. By sending out high-pitched calls and listening for echoes, bats mapped the night in a way no eye could. They turned darkness into vision, mastering a world invisible to others. Their strategy was delicate but brilliant. While birds ruled daylight skies, bats ruled the night. This division allowed them to thrive without competition, balancing ecosystems by feasting on insects and spreading seeds across wide distances. Bats also show us how evolution experiments with form. Their wings are unlike birds, stretched fingers wrapped in skin, flexible and agile. Each swoop, each flutter is a testament to the creativity of adaptation, finding flight through a different path. Today, bats remain mysterious guardians of night, often unseen, yet essential. Their survival reminds us that sometimes thriving means embracing the hidden hours when others rest. The mystery of primates climbing toward thought. In dense forests, another branch of mammals began an extraordinary journey. Primates, with grasping hands, forward-facing eyes, and curious minds, climbed trees and explored the canopy. Their world was vertical, full of branches, shadows, and endless puzzles to solve. Hands were their first advantage. With thumbs to grasp, they could pluck fruit, swing from branches, and handle objects with precision. Eyes gave them depth, letting them judge distance as they leapt from tree to tree. Each feature was a step toward greater awareness. But the true change was in their brains. Primates grew more curious, more social, more capable of remembering and learning. They formed groups, cared for one another, and communicated in ways beyond instinct. Thought itself was beginning to flicker inside them. From these forests, the lineage that would become human slowly took shape. It did not happen overnight, but every leap, every solved puzzle, every gesture shared in a troop of primates nudged the mind forward. The mystery of primates is not just their past, but their potential. They remind us that intelligence did not arrive fully formed. It climbed, slowly, step by step, from the branches of ancient trees toward the horizon of thought. How hands quietly mastered tools. Among primates, hands became more than just for climbing. They began to shape, to build, to transform. At first, it was simple, breaking a branch, picking up a stone. But slowly, those small actions became tools, a rock sharpened to cut, a stick used to dig. Each act a step toward mastery over the world. The thumb was the quiet hero here. With it, grip became precise, strong, delicate. Hands could hold, twist, and craft in ways no other creature could. This ability gave primates an edge to reach food, to create shelter, to protect themselves in subtle ways. Over time, tool use became culture. Skills were taught, passed on, remembered. A sharp stone was no longer just a stone. It was knowledge, a survival lesson carried across generations. With each tool, the brain and hand shaped one another, growing together in power. Even today, every invention, from a spoon to a skyscraper, traces back to this story. The tools in your kitchen drawer are descendants of those first sharpened rocks. They remind us that progress often begins with small, simple acts repeated with patience. Hands were never just for survival. They became the bridge between thought and creation, between imagination and reality. The soft glow of fire changing everything. Then came fire, not lightning's fire, not volcanoes' fire, but fire captured, kept and tamed by human ancestors. Around it, warmth spread, shadows danced and fear receded. Fire meant safety in the dark, cooked food for stronger bodies, and gatherings that bound communities together. It was more than survival. It was transformation. The glow of fire lengthened days into nights. It gave time to think, to tell stories, to plan. Around flames, language found its rhythm, and memory became shared. The fire was not only warmth for the body, but light for the mind. Fire also changed the very nature of food. Cooking unlocked energy, softened roots and meat, and freed bodies to spend less time chewing and more time growing brains. In its quiet way, fire was a sculptor, shaping human evolution itself. What is striking is how fire became sacred. Every flame carried meaning, protection, creation, community. Even today, candles, hearths, and rituals carry echoes of that first bond between humans and fire. It is not just chemistry, it is memory woven into light. The first campfires did not just change the night. They changed the destiny of humanity, opening a path toward thought, culture, and connection. The slow weaving of language in the air. Around those fires, voices grew. At first, perhaps only sounds, warnings, calls, gestures, turned into shared meaning, but slowly those sounds became language. Words emerged, carrying not just signals, but ideas, feelings, dreams. Language was the quiet invention that allowed thought to escape the mind and live in the air between people. With words, memory stretched beyond the individual. Knowledge no longer vanished with death. It could be told, retold, carried across time. Language gave birth to culture, tradition, and the weaving of stories that bound tribes together in shared identity. The power of language was subtle but immense. It allowed cooperation, planning, imagination. With it, humans could dream of tomorrow, warn of dangers, or pass down wisdom to children. Each word was a tool sharper than stone, lighter than fire, yet far more enduring. Even today, every conversation, every song, every book is part of this same weaving. The air around us hums with echoes of the first words spoken in the dark. Language is not just communication, it is a bridge between souls. The rise of language was the rise of humanity's collective mind. It made us more than individuals. It made us a story told together. The invisible bond of cooperation. With language came cooperation. Humans began to work together in ways no species had before. Hunting in groups, sharing food, building shelters. Survival became a collective effort. The invisible bond of cooperation was stronger than muscle, sharper than claws. It was trust, built on shared intention. This bond reshaped evolution. Alone, a human ancestor was fragile. Together they could hunt giant animals, endure harsh winters, and defend against predators. Cooperation allowed small groups to thrive in places where they would otherwise perish. Survival became less about strength, more about unity. Cooperation also gave rise to compassion, caring for the injured, protecting the young, mourning the dead. These acts strengthened bonds and ensured survival. Evolution favored not only the strong, but the kind, for kindness created resilience in the group. Even today, cooperation remains our hidden engine. Cities, technologies, and cultures are all built on the same principle. No one survives alone. Every handshake, every shared meal, every agreement is an echo of this ancient bond. The invisible bond of cooperation is perhaps the most powerful invention of evolution, the one that made humanity more than just another animal, the timeless survival of genes through love and care. At the heart of it all lies a simple truth. Survival is not just about the individual, but about passing life forward. Genes endure not by chance, but through love and care. Parents protecting children, groups defending one another, partners sharing resources. These acts ensured that life's spark continued across generations. Evolution is often described as competition, but it is also devotion. A mother nursing her child, a father teaching survival skills, siblings watching over one another. These are acts written in our very biology. Care is not weakness. It is survival's strongest strategy. Through love, genes find safety. The child who survives carries forward the code, the memory of ancestors. Every hug, every act of protection is more than emotion. It is evolution's quiet hand, ensuring continuity. It is striking to realize that even the smallest gestures, like feeding a child or holding a loved one close, are ancient survival tools. They link you directly to creatures long gone, who cared for their own with the same tenderness. The survival of genes is not just science, it is poetry. The timeless passing of life through care, binding past, present, and future into one unbroken chain. How migration shaped minds across continents. Humans did not stay in one place. They moved, following rivers, chasing herds, crossing mountains and deserts. Each migration was more than travel, it was transformation. New lands brought new challenges, and with them, new adaptations of body and mind. The story of humanity is the story of footsteps across continents. Migration shaped our resilience. In icy tundras, we learned to sew clothes and build shelters. In deserts, we found ways to store water and endure heat. Each journey was a classroom, teaching us survival in countless forms. The earth itself was our teacher, reshaping us with every mile. But migration also shaped our minds. meeting new landscapes, new stars in the night sky, new obstacles. It expanded imagination and problem-solving. The constant movement created curiosity, the need to explore, the urge to keep going. This wandering spirit is still inside us, the reason we look to oceans, skies, and even the stars above. Cultures, too, were born from these journeys. Languages diverged, traditions adapted, and stories of origin took root in every land. Migration scattered seeds of diversity, making humanity a tapestry of countless colors and voices. Every path we walk today echoes the migrations of ancestors. Roads, trails, even flight paths across the sky are reminders that movement has always been our nature, the shared whispers of evolution in all species. Though humans often see themselves apart, evolution whispers that all species are kin. The same code that shapes your heart also beats in birds, in fish, in trees. DNA is a shared language, spoken by every living thing. Each species is a verse in the same ancient song. What's humbling is how much we share. Humans carry genes almost identical to chimpanzees, but also surprising kinship with bananas, yeast, even the grass outside your door. Life is not separate kingdoms, but branches on a single tree, each split carrying echoes of the past. These shared whispers are visible if you look closely. The eye of a cat, the wing of a bat, the flipper of a whale, and your own hand, all built on the same bones, reshaped but familiar. It is as if nature enjoys reusing its favorite patterns, sculpting variety from the same raw clay. Even in behaviors, the kinship appears. Birds courting with dances, wolves caring for their young, ants building cities. These are not so different from our own rituals of love, family, and cooperation. The whispers of evolution thread through every life form, binding us together. To see ourselves as part of this web is to realize that survival is not solitary. It is shared, and every creature is both cousin and teacher in the endless story of life. Why small changes create endless variety? At the heart of evolution lies a simple truth. Small changes, repeated over time, create endless variety. A tiny shift in a gene, a slight difference in survival, multiplied across generations, can build wings, eyes, colors, and forms never seen before. It is patience turned into diversity. Consider the beaks of finches, each shaped by food on its island. A small curve here, a stronger bite there. Each change meant survival. And in time, those changes became distinct species. Small differences, magnified by need, became the architects of new life. The beauty of this process is its unpredictability. Evolution does not plan ahead. It experiments, tests, discards, refines. Some paths vanish, others flourish. Yet from this dance, variety emerges, every leaf, every feather, every fingerprint a testament to change in motion. Even within you, this truth lives. No two people are identical because each carries tiny variations that make them unique. Some variations fade, some pass forward, some define entire lineages. Diversity is not an accident. It is life's deepest strategy. Small changes remind us that great transformations rarely come in leaps. They begin in whispers, in the quiet work of time shaping possibility into form. The slow poetry of natural selection. Natural selection is often spoken of as ruthless, the survival of the fittest. But look closely and it is also poetry. It is the quiet shaping of life by environment, the gentle choosing of forms that harmonize with their world. It is nature as sculptor, carving not with force, but with patience. A polar bear's fur thickening in the cold, a desert plant storing water in its leaves, a bird's wings growing longer for migration. Each is a verse in this poem. Survival is not random. It is the slow matching of life to place, of body to need. What's remarkable is that natural selection does not seek perfection. It only seeks good enough. Life adapts not to ideals, but to what works. And yet, out of this simple rule, astonishing beauty and complexity arise, more varied than any design could predict. Even now, as climates shift and challenges change, natural selection continues. Species adapt in silence, reshaping themselves without fanfare. You are living proof, the product of countless generations, shaped by unseen hands. Natural selection is not just a mechanism, it is the ongoing poem of existence, written line by line across the canvas of Earth. How beauty itself became a survival tool. At first glance, beauty seems unnecessary. Bright feathers, colorful flowers, intricate songs. Yet beauty became one of evolution's most powerful tools. It was not about survival alone, but attraction, choice, and the desire to be chosen. Beauty shaped life as much as hunger or danger. Peacocks spread brilliant tails, not to hide, but to display. Flowers bloom in vivid colors to lure pollinators. Birds sing songs that carry not only messages, but charm. These displays are costly, even risky, yet they endure because they work. Beauty became the language of life's second game, reproduction. This process, called sexual selection, created forms that defy mere practicality. Antlers grown larger than needed, plumage brighter than safe, dances more elaborate than efficient. Beauty is survival through desire, the way genes ensure their future by pleasing the senses of others. It is striking to think that love, attraction, and even art may all trace back to this. The appreciation of beauty is not a luxury of humans alone. It is an ancient force, older than culture, older than thought, written in the instincts of countless species. Beauty as survival teaches us that life is not just struggle, it is also celebration, expression, and the urge to create something more than function, something that captivates,